Randy Orton has just revealed a shocking reason why WWE wrestlers actually dislike Vince McMahon, and it paints a very negative picture.
I pleaded with him, like, man, I gotta, not do as many shows. And he just looked at me and was like, oh, I need you on those shows, Randy. Mother Nature gets us all.
For years, Vince McMahon was seen as untouchable, the mastermind behind WWE's global success. But now the curtain is being pulled back, and some of the things he did to his top stars are finally coming to light. So, what exactly did Orton reveal, and why could this be the final nail in the coffin for Vince McMahon ever stepping back into a WWE ring? The revelation that shocked the wrestling world comes from the legendary Randy Orton, whose career has spanned decades under the watchful eye of the former WWE chairman, as he finally exposes why so many WWE superstars have harbored resentment toward the controversial wrestling mogul. What Orton shared is not just another backstage rumor or speculative gossip. It is a first-hand account from someone who spent his entire professional career under McMahon's leadership, shedding new light on the working conditions WWE superstars have endured for years. Before diving into Orton's bombshell revelations, it is important to understand his prestigious position within the company. Randy Orton is wrestling royalty, a 14-time world champion, and one of the most decorated performers in WWE history, with insights that carry tremendous weight because few have experienced the wrestling business from his vantage point. In a recent interview that sent shockwaves through the wrestling community, Orton spoke candidly about his experiences working under Vince McMahon, contrasting them with the current regime led by Triple H and Nick Khan. What Orton revealed paints a troubling picture of life under McMahon's leadership, defined by grueling schedules, little regard for personal well-being, and an almost callous disregard for the wrestlers' health and family lives, making it no surprise that many in the locker room grew to resent him, with some even outright hating the man behind the empire. The interview is particularly significant because Randy Orton is not known for being outspoken against WWE or its management. Throughout his career, he has been viewed as a company man, someone who has remained loyal to WWE since day one, and during this very interview, he proudly noted that he might be the only wrestler to have worked exclusively for one company throughout his entire career, which makes his candid comments about McMahon all the more impactful. These are not the words of a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind, but rather the honest reflections of one of WWE's most loyal soldiers, and according to Orton, two primary issues caused widespread dissatisfaction among wrestlers: a complete disregard for work-life balance and a chaotic, stress-inducing creative process. Addressing the work-life balance issues, Orton shared a particularly telling anecdote about approaching McMahon at the age of 35, when he began experiencing serious back problems, and like any reasonable person, he requested a reduced schedule to allow his body time to recover.
Vince McMahon had us, he had Raw and Monday Night Live, where, everyone's, doesn't care if he had kids. I came to him when I was 35 and my back really started going, and I pleaded with him, like, man, I gotta, not do as many shows, maybe do half the tour and be able to recover. And he just looked at me and was like, oh, I need you on those shows, Randy. Mother Nature gets us all.
McMahon's response was shocking in its dismissiveness, telling Orton, oh, I need you on those shows, Randy. Mother Nature gets us all. A callous reply that reveals a disturbing lack of concern for the physical well-being of the talent. Professional wrestling is an extraordinarily demanding profession, with wrestlers performing what amounts to a highly athletic stunt show multiple nights per week with little time for recovery, and the toll this takes on the human body cannot be overstated. What makes this revelation particularly troubling is that Orton was not asking for special treatment. He was simply requesting a reduced schedule due to legitimate health concerns, as his back was really starting to fail, and yet McMahon essentially told him to push through the pain with a fatalistic reference to aging that did nothing to address his very real physical issues. Later in the interview, Orton reinforced his thoughts, making it clear that while he respects Vince McMahon for the opportunities he was given, he is not exactly mourning his departure, admitting that he was actually relieved to see a change at the top.
Off the top of my head, and listen, I love Vince. He gave me so many opportunities, but I think it was kind of time for him to move on. It's unfortunate that it happened in the way that it happened.
This is a remarkably candid admission from Orton, who, while acknowledging his gratitude for the opportunities McMahon provided, does not shy away from criticizing the former WWE chairman's complete disregard for wrestlers' personal lives. Under McMahon's leadership, wrestlers routinely missed important family events, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all sacrificed to the altar of WWE's relentless schedule, forcing performers to imagine missing their child's birthday or being absent on Christmas morning year after year, not because of an occasional work emergency, but because their boss simply did not care if they had children. This callous disregard for family life would be considered unacceptable in most workplaces and is particularly jarring coming from someone like McMahon, who frequently emphasized the importance of family in WWE's corporate messaging. But concerns about work-life balance were not limited to missing family events, as Orton went on to explain how McMahon's response to his back problems essentially forced him to choose between his health and his career.
I need you on those shows, Randy. Mother Nature gets us all. And to hear that and go, okay, well, I guess there's no other, thing I can do other than just, wear myself out down to the nub until, I can't walk anymore for this man.
The image Orton paints is deeply disturbing, showing wrestlers being pushed to the point where they can barely walk just to satisfy McMahon's demands, making it no wonder they would resent this approach to management, as they were essentially asked to sacrifice their long-term health and well-being for the company's short-term gain with little regard for what would happen once their bodies gave out. This revelation is especially significant given the industry's long history of performers suffering serious health issues later in life, with many dying young or living with debilitating injuries after their career's end, and McMahon's attitude, as described by Orton, suggests he saw this not as a problem to be solved, but simply as the cost of doing business, summing it up with, "Mother Nature gets us all." Work-life balance issues were only one reason for resentment, as Orton also revealed that the creative process under McMahon was a major source of stress and frustration, with last-minute changes to shows sometimes made just hours before they aired live, in stark contrast to the current regime that plans storylines months in advance, and Orton described the environment as flying by the seat of their pants, with changes often coming at 5 p.m. East Coast time, only 2 to 3 hours before airtime. This chaotic approach to creative planning created an immensely stressful work environment for performers, who had little time to prepare for their segments, and in the entertainment industry, preparation is crucial, as actors typically have weeks or months to memorize lines and develop their characters, whereas professional wrestlers under McMahon were often given new dialogue, match outcomes, or storyline directions just hours before performing, all while preparing for physically demanding matches that carried real risks of injury. Imagine being told, just hours before going live on a broadcast watched by millions, that everything you had planned had suddenly changed, forcing you to scramble to memorize new lines, adjust to a new match structure, and still deliver a flawless performance, the kind of pressure that would wear anyone down, and when combined with an already brutal schedule, it is easy to see why many wrestlers burned out and began to resent the man calling the shots. One of the most troubling aspects of McMahon's reign, as revealed through Orton's comments and corroborated by numerous sources, was the culture of sacrifice that permeated the company, with wrestlers expected to prioritize WWE above all else, above their health, their families, and their own well-being, creating an environment where performers felt they had no choice but to push beyond their limits, often with devastating consequences, leaving many wrestlers' children growing up barely seeing their parents. Wrestlers miss first steps, first words, school performances, sports games, all the moments most parents treasure, and unlike other professions that require travel, such as military service or certain business roles, these absences were not treated as necessary sacrifices to be minimized and accommodated. Rather, according to Orton, McMahon simply does not care if you have kids. A callous attitude toward family life that naturally breeds resentment among performers who value relationships outside the ring. Many wrestlers have spoken about the toll the WWE lifestyle takes on marriages and partnerships, with the divorce rate among professional wrestlers notoriously high and stories of broken families all too common, as the stress of constant travel, physical pain, and separation from loved ones makes personal relationships incredibly difficult to maintain. And McMahon's apparent disregard for this reality only worsened the problem, making it harder for wrestlers to build stable, healthy lives outside of work. This creative chaos was particularly frustrating for performers who took pride in their craft, as many joined WWE with dreams of telling compelling stories and creating memorable moments for fans, but under McMahon's leadership, they often found themselves at the mercy of his whims, unable to build the long-term, satisfying storylines both they and the audience craved. The combination of physical sacrifice, personal sacrifice, and creative frustration created an environment ripe for resentment. And while Orton remained diplomatic in his criticisms, other wrestlers have been far more explicit in condemning McMahon's management style. Take CM Punk, for example, whose departure from WWE in 2014 was marked by scathing criticisms of McMahon and the company culture, as Punk alleged that WWE's medical team neglected a potentially fatal staph infection, misdiagnosing it as a fatty deposit, and claimed to have worked through broken ribs and concussions without adequate care, reflecting the same disregard for wrestler health that Orton highlighted. Punk's grievances also extended to creative frustrations, as he felt stifled and undervalued despite being one of the company's top performers, and perhaps most tellingly, he revealed that he was officially terminated on his wedding day, an act he perceived as a deliberate slight and another example of McMahon's apparent disregard for wrestlers' personal lives. Bret Hart, another WWE legend, has been even more explicit in his criticism, particularly following the infamous Montreal Screwjob, publicly stating that he has zero respect for McMahon, a sentiment stemming not just from personal grievances but from a broader critique of McMahon's impact on the wrestling industry. Scott Steiner, known for his outspoken nature, has been similarly harsh, publicly criticizing WWE's creative direction under McMahon, calling the product horrible and expressing disdain for his vision for the company.
Vince did a lot of good for wrestling. He also did a lot of bad for wrestling. When he bought WCW, he didn't realize that there's two different organizations that had two separate audiences, and he pretty much squashed WCW. So he kind of, wrestling around.
Even more troubling are the allegations regarding McMahon's personal conduct that have emerged in recent years. In January 2024, former WWE employee Janelle Grant filed a lawsuit accusing McMahon of sexual assault and trafficking, claims that, if true, would paint an even more disturbing picture of the former WWE chairman, including a 2020 incident where McMahon allegedly defecated on her and forced encounters in 2021 involving WWE executive John Laurinaitis. These allegations led to McMahon's resignation from TKO, the parent company formed by WWE's merger with UFC on January 26, 2024. Orton himself has expressed mixed feelings about these allegations, telling Sports Illustrated, "If these allegations are true, then it's some horrible right there. I'm torn. It's hard, reflecting the complex relationship many wrestlers have with McMahon, combining gratitude for opportunities with disgust at his alleged behavior." The allegations against McMahon extend beyond Grant's lawsuit, as in June 2022, WWE's board investigated a $3 million hush money payment and ultimately found that McMahon had made $12 million in payments to 4 women, 2 of whom alleged sexual misconduct, prompting his initial retirement as CEO in July 2022, though he later returned as executive chairman in January 2023. In January 2025, the SEC announced that McMahon had agreed to pay a $400,000 fine and reimburse $1.3 million to WWE for false accounting related to undisclosed NDAs, including a 2019 payment of $7.5 million and the 2022 payment of $3 million. These financial penalties further tarnished McMahon's legacy and raised serious questions about his ethical conduct as WWE's leader, and the historical controversies surrounding him extend even further. In the 1990s, he faced a steroid abuse scandal that resulted in his indictment on conspiracy and drug distribution charges, and while he was ultimately acquitted in 1994, the case raised serious concerns about the culture of substance abuse within WWE under his leadership. McMahon has also been accused of covering up for wrestlers involved in serious misconduct, such as allegedly telling Steve Austin's then-wife, Deborah, not to discuss domestic violence charges publicly in the late 1990s, prioritizing the company's image over accountability for harmful behavior. Even his creative decisions have sometimes crossed ethical lines, as in 2006, when he pushed forward a controversial live TV segment featuring Lita and Edge that made many wrestlers uncomfortable, boosting ratings at the cost of creating a hostile work environment. Given this long history of controversial behavior and questionable decisions, it is perhaps not surprising that many wrestlers came to resent his leadership, as the culture of sacrifice he fostered, combined with apparent disregard for ethical considerations, created an environment where performers felt exploited, undervalued, and disrespected. But how have things changed since his departure? A new era has dawned under Triple H, and in his interview, Randy Orton didn't just criticize McMahon's management style. He also offered a striking contrast with the current regime led by Triple H, Paul Levesque, and Nick Khan, describing changes that paint a picture of a company in transformation, finally prioritizing the well-being of its performers after decades of sacrificing it for entertainment. And Orton was remarkably candid about his relief at McMahon's departure.
All the opportunities he gave me, it's nice having him out of there, and it's nice having his son-in-law, Triple H, running the game. Nick Khan's great. Everybody with TKO that's come in, stepped in, they seem to get it.
This statement is striking in its honesty, as Orton, while acknowledging his gratitude for the opportunities McMahon provided, makes it clear that he is relieved McMahon is no longer in charge, with the phrase, "It's nice having him out of there," leaving little room for ambiguity. Orton, and presumably many other wrestlers, believe that WWE is better off without McMahon at the helm, and what sets the current regime apart, according to him, is their understanding of the importance of work-life balance. Under Triple H and Nick Khan, wrestlers are reportedly given more time to be with their families for important events like birthdays and holidays, a stark contrast to McMahon's approach, which Orton described as not caring if you had kids, and he elaborated on these differences, emphasizing the more humane approach of the current leadership.
And it's a different era.
Yeah.
It's a different era.
The RKO and TKO.
You're right, exactly, like you said. But I think the way that they care for talent nowadays and make sure that talent's good, and if they need a little bit of a break, we're only human, they get it most of the time.
The phrase, "we're only human," is particularly telling, suggesting that under McMahon, wrestlers were treated not as humans with normal needs and limitations, but as assets to be exploited for maximum return, whereas the new regime recognizes the humanity of performers and accommodates their needs accordingly, marking a fundamental change in WWE's culture. For decades, the company operated under a philosophy that prioritized the show above all else, above the health of performers, above their personal lives, and above their long-term well-being, expecting wrestlers to sacrifice everything for entertainment, regardless of the toll on their bodies and relationships. Under Triple H and Nick Khan, that philosophy appears to be shifting, as the acknowledgement that wrestlers are only human and sometimes need a break represents a more sustainable approach to talent management, allowing performers time to rest, recover, and maintain personal relationships, which is not only more humane but likely helps ensure the longevity of their careers. This change in management extends beyond work-life balance to the creative process. As Orton notes, one of the most significant improvements is the long-term planning of storylines, contrasting with McMahon's habit of making last-minute changes just hours before shows went live, while Triple H now plans creative directions months in advance. This approach not only reduces stress for performers but also allows for more coherent, engaging storytelling, as when wrestlers know where their characters are headed and have time to prepare, they can deliver better performances, benefiting everyone. The performers who can take pride in their work, the company which can produce a higher quality product, and most importantly, the fans who get to enjoy more compelling stories and matches. The cultural shift within WWE since McMahon's departure is reflected in more than just Orton's comments. It is visible in the product itself, which many fans and critics agree has improved significantly under Triple H's creative direction, with storylines more consistent, characters more fully developed, and in-ring performances often feeling more authentic and less contrived. Perhaps the most significant change is in the treatment of performers themselves, as under Triple H, wrestlers appear to have more input into their characters and storylines, more flexibility in their schedules, and greater support for their physical and mental well-being, resulting in a roster that seems more engaged, motivated, and capable of delivering the performances fans want to see. The contrast between McMahon's approach and Triple H's is particularly interesting given their personal relationship, as Triple H, or Paul Levesque, is not just a former wrestler and current executive, but also McMahon's son-in-law, married to Stephanie McMahon, and one might expect him to continue his father-in-law's management style, yet he appears to have deliberately charted a different course. This suggests that Triple H recognized the problems with McMahon's approach and made a conscious decision to do things differently, as having experienced life as a WWE wrestler himself, he likely understands the toll the schedule takes on performers' bodies and personal lives, and this first-hand experience may have informed his more humane approach to talent management. The timing of McMahon's departure and Triple H's rise to creative control is also noteworthy, as McMahon resigned from TKO, WWE's parent company, in January 2024 following the filing of a lawsuit by former WWE employee Janelle Grant, which contained disturbing allegations of sexual assault and trafficking that, if true, paint an even more troubling picture of his character and conduct. Given these allegations, it is possible McMahon's departure was not entirely voluntary, coming after Slim Jim withdrew its sponsorship of the Royal Rumble due to the claims, suggesting financial pressures on TKO to distance itself from him, adding another layer to Orton's comment about it being nice having him out of there, and indicating that many within WWE, including wrestlers, executives, and staff, may have long been uncomfortable with McMahon's leadership but felt powerless to challenge it, with his departure, even under unpleasant circumstances, seen as an opportunity for positive change. The story of why WWE wrestlers grew to resent Vince McMahon, as revealed by Randy Orton, is ultimately about the human cost of entertainment, as for decades wrestlers sacrificed their bodies, relationships, and sometimes even their lives to entertain fans under his leadership, and the toll on them and their families made the resulting resentment entirely understandable. Yet Orton's revelations also point to a more hopeful future for WWE and its performers, as under Triple H and Nick Khan, the company appears to be moving toward a more sustainable, humane approach to talent management, recognizing that wrestlers are only human and accommodating their needs, allowing WWE to create a work environment where performers can thrive both professionally and personally. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, click on one of the boxes on your screen to watch more similar content.